quite a few things that I want to convey with this one, because it is something that is, often said in the spiritual community, as they say, kind of a reassuring, saying that, gets across the concept that the world is not as we see it. We experience ourselves as being, separated, encapsulated in this physical form as an individual human being looking out through these eyes, experiencing the world around us. And it's important to come to that realization and understanding that we are not separate from the world. We are, immersed in the world. We are an expression of energy, along with everything else that is also an expression of energy. And so, in one sense, this is very much true, that the concept of separation is just an illusion created by our mind. And coming to that realization can be a very powerful way of shifting our perspective and how we relate to the world and to others. Instead of relating to the world and to other people as these, completely separate individuals, recognizing them as, being expressions of the same universal life force energy. All that being said, I wanted to go a little bit further into this concept with an example. So, is it just your thoughts that is keeping you from being able to go to the moon? Here we are on planet Earth. The moon is a long ways away. That concept of separation is an illusion tends to imply if you just shift your thinking, then you can do anything. And this isn't entirely accurate. Now, so are your thoughts all that's keeping you from being able to go to the moon? The answer is yes, and the answer is no. Because we can astral travel. I've experienced the out-of-body state very briefly. There were a few different occasions. This was quite a long time ago, the fall of 1993, when I was just 21 years old, I think. And I experimented with astral travel after having read a book on the subject, and managed to, bring about the experience and experienced very briefly the astral state. Experienced my soul actually leaving the body, but it was very weird and uncomfortable and made me very ungrounded in the real world once I came back, to full consciousness, and I decided that was a little too out there. And so I haven't experienced it since then. However, that possibility is available to us, and in that realm, then your thoughts are what determine reality, and you can go to the moon, easily enough. There's a little more to it than that, from what I understand. I mean, what I experienced was simply sort of floating across the floor of my room where I lived, and to actually learn how to travel, at will in the astral realm does still require a bit of experience and know-how, from what I understand, based on reading others' experiences. But it is possible to travel to the moon, based purely on your thoughts. However, that is the astral realm. The physical realm is another dimension, literally, and the laws here are very different. You cannot stand here on planet Earth and think, I want to be on the moon, and be on the moon. I don't know, maybe Jesus could have done that. Maybe that is conceivable in some way, that once you truly master your energy, you could actually fly, but basically, no, that is not possible. You have a variety of problems, not just lifting off the Earth, but there's no oxygen in space. So basically, let's call that impossible. In order to get to Earth, in order to get from Earth to the moon, you have to deal with physical laws that are very specific, that are unbreakable. You cannot, think your way out of them. You have to gather together a massive amount of energy in order to propel yourself off the planet, and then to navigate yourself to the moon, and then land there. And then you have to be in a specially designed spacesuit in order to be able to walk around on that body. We have accomplished that as human beings, obviously, and so we know that it is possible. But you're not going to get there just by telling yourself it's just an illusion that the moon is there and I'm here. All I have to do is think the right thoughts and I can be there walking around comfortably on the moon. And the point here is that this reality applies to our lives and the spiritual journey as well. Those of us who are, seeking a new way of being and relating to the world, and are seeking at least to explore this concept of ascension. I won't claim to, know how that works or what exactly that entails. If that's really possible, for us to achieve in this lifetime, I do believe that it is possible, but I don't understand exactly, what that really means and what that will entail. The concept of ascension, ascending into a higher dimension through increasing our vibratory rate. Now, I've done videos and talked previously about the Shroud of Turin, which is a piece of linen cloth located in Turin, Italy, that is believed to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. It has an image on the cloth that depicts a naked man in the full length of a man with his hands crossed, covering his groin, front and back, because it's a cloth that went up like this and then came down. So it's this image embedded into this piece of cloth, and how this image ended up on this cloth is unexplainable to science at this time. There have been allegations that the Shroud of Turin is a forgery and that it was faked somehow. The question is, for anyone who knows anything about the Shroud of Turin, the history of the shroud can be tracked back to at least the Middle Ages, to around, I think, the year 1390 or so, in terms of where it was. And then beyond that, it sort of pops up at certain points in history, but it is very conceivable that it could go back to the time of Christ. Radiocarbon dating has shown it to actually have come from the Middle Ages, but there have been some doubts cast on that radiocarbon dating conclusions for a variety of reasons that I won't jump into right now. But the question is, for those who would say, that's the forgery, it couldn't possibly be the real burial shroud of Jesus. The image on the Shroud of Turin was not discovered in its full detail until the invention of the camera. There's a faint image on the shroud that you can see from the naked eye. Once the camera was invented, a photographer took pictures of the Shroud of Turin and then discovered that in the negatives, the reverse image, there was much greater detail than was previously known. How does somebody from the Middle Ages create a forgery of something that, first of all, we don't know what caused it, because it is not paint, it is not etched in some way into the shroud, it is not caused by burning or singeing the shroud. It is not something that is obvious on the material level what caused this image to be etched into this burial cloth. And then beyond that, how do you create a forgery of something in the Middle Ages in which the full depths of that supposed forgery isn't discovered until half a millennium later 400 or 500 years later, with the invention of the camera, something that they could not have possibly conceived of during the Middle Ages, how is that possible? You know, that is a very real element of the Shroud of Turin that cannot, has not yet been explained in any way. My personal belief, based on having looked into this a fair amount, is that the burial shroud, the Shroud of Turin, is in fact the burial shroud of Jesus, and that what created the image in the shroud was the ascension of Jesus. When he left this realm, he brought his body with him, and that transformation of his body back into spirit created a blast of energy, of light, and that is what they've determined actually in scientific studies, is that the image on the Shroud of Turin is created by photons, by light. And so this ascension of Jesus is what caused the image on the Shroud of Turin. So it may very well be something that actually proves the possibility of ascension. So pretty fascinating to consider. Feel free to search around on your own. Now I'm finally sort of tying things back together here and getting back to the concept of getting to the moon, which is that you don't get to the moon without somehow coming up with a phenomenal amount of energy. And I think, just based on my own limited understanding, that the concept of ascension is not unlike getting to the moon. That it is a extremely difficult accomplishment, but one that is quite possible and within the grasp of humans. However, it requires a great amount of energy. And that is where I finally get back to the ultimate point of this video, which is that the spiritual quest ultimately is about accessing energy, our full energy potential within, and learning to harness and master that energy for the sake of our spiritual evolution and ultimately perhaps ascension. But you do not get around to bringing about that kind of a force of energy simply through the concept, the thought of, well, it's all an illusion, I have unlimited potential, I can do whatever I want. You have to actually deal with the real laws of this realm and work with them, and in a very precise, specific way that honors that energy, and you have to come to a real deep understanding of this physical world and the spiritual realm, and how those realms intersect and interact, so it is not something where you just finally realize, oh, I can do whatever I want, I'm a human being with great potential. There's more to it than that. So that's my ultimate point, is just to keep in mind that yes, separation is an illusion. We are part of this universe that is a universe of oneness, that is simply expressions of energy. But we have to dig deep and search within, and continually be stretching our mind, the limitations and boundaries of our mind, to come to greater understandings of the world around us and of ourselves, in order to come to a deeper place of being within the world, and in order to propel ourselves along the spiritual path, and come to a place of higher and greater vibration of our being, in order to be able to accomplish great things in the world, including perhaps ascending on to another dimension. So I think that wraps things up. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.